you're ready to wake up, you're going to wake up. And if you're not ready, you're going to stay pretending that you're just a poor little me.
Do you feel it?
Yes, we do.
A worldwide awakening is upon us. Welcome to the Universal Consciousness Show.
The Universal Consciousness Show.
Where we explore topics such as UFOs, aliens, banned medical cures, as well as classified secret knowledge. Come question your holographic existence. Share experiences from the other side. This is a show that will expand your mind as we decrypt the symbolic messages locked away deep within your DNA. And now, your guides for this magical journey. The hosts of the Universal Consciousness Show, Avi Nast and Diana Seraphim.
Hello, everybody. How is 2020 treating you? Well, we almost done with 1/12 of it. Don't we wonder who's going to be and what is going to be in the other 11/12 of it? I'm sure looking forward to it. And for right now, you are listening to the show for the Thinking Global Citizen. My name is Agi, and I'm one of the hosts, and my co-host Diana is over in Germany. Are you there, Diana?
I am here. Hello, everyone.
All right. Now, before I introduce the guest we're going to have with us today, I want to tell you how you can connect with us. You can visit us at our website at www.universal-consciousness-show.com. Or we are on YouTube at the same name, Universal Consciousness Show. And while you're there, please subscribe. That's going to help us a lot. And besides, if you subscribe and click on that little bell next to the subscribe button, you know, that big red one, then you will get notifications when there are new videos coming out. And that could be a good thing, because otherwise you just might miss one of them that you really would have liked to hear or see. So for those of you that like to hear this show again, you'll find it at our website, universal-consciousness-show. And we are on YouTube, as I said. And of course, we are also archived at the KCOR Radio website. That is at kcorradio.com. We are there under Universal Consciousness Show, and we are on Twitter, iTunes, TuneIn, Alexa, Facebook, and a few other places, but we're spread around out there. So if you are listening to the KCOR Radio website, don't forget that donate button. It is this phenomenal little feature at the bottom of the page. If you like what you hear today, we would love it if you're able to also tell us in form of gratitude that we're doing the right thing. Just send us a little donation if you can, but if you can't, don't worry about it. We love you because we just are so glad you're here listening, because otherwise, gosh, it will be just you, me, and the guest, and Diana sitting here talking to ourselves, and that wouldn't be any fun at all. So for right now, I want to introduce the guest to us. We have David Emmons with us. And he had some incredible experiences, which started with classes and training in top secret nuclear science for the military. He volunteered to Vietnam, and he survived it. And he came back and has been a musician for 45 years. And a business owner, and many other things. Now, he has been contacted and abducted, I suppose, by extraterrestrials on many occasions, and we're going to hear more about that. Recently, he also started an internet radio show to give the voice to others that have had some strange experiences. And that is very rewarding, because there's a lot of people out there that have experiences, interesting experiences that we want to hear about, but they don't really have anybody to talk to, or when you're on a radio show as a guest, it becomes more impersonal. You don't see the people out there. So sometimes people open up more. And I've noticed that it is a totally different environment. And we should help those people to come out and talk about it. So the journey goes on, and then welcome to the show, Dave.
Yeah, hi, Augie. This is Dave Emmons. And Diana, how you doing over there in Germany?
Yes, I'm doing well. Hello, David, and thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you.
To begin with, could you please tell us, for the people that don't know you yet, how did this all begin for you? What was the turning point in your life that put you on this path where you are today?
I can explain my first, event, because that's where it all starts. We have an hour to cover this, so I generally have about 3 hours of information, and there's been a lot of things that happened to me, but I'll explain some of the larger events, especially the first event. First event happened in 1963. It was kind of beginning of the summer. We were just out of school, and I had a best friend of mine and I sitting on the steps where his basement apartment was at that he lived with his dad, and we had a 10 transistor radio, and we were drinking Pepsi out of glass bottles back then, and that 10 transistor radio was the big thing back then also. I doubt if either one of you can relate to that, but we sat there. You do, okay.
Me too.
Yeah, okay. But we sat there and we heard the radio snapping and popping, and we couldn't figure out what. I said, "Did you change the batteries?" I asked my buddy. He said, "Yeah, I just did." I said, "Well, I wonder what's going on." And then we smelled something that smelled like a sulfur smell. It was real pungent, and I thought to myself, "Wow, what's going on? Is there a fire somewhere?" And we looked up, and there was 2 small bright lights. They weren't really big bright lights. They were small, like little searchlights. And we looked up, we saw this, and we thought to ourselves, wow, what is this? It's not a helicopter, because we didn't hear any sound. And it was just above the tree levels, and which was about maybe 50 feet, something like that, maybe 60 at the most. And we went up on the road, and he grabbed a flashlight out of his dad's truck. And then he begins flashing the flashlight at this craft, in which we couldn't really see too well until we got up the road and into an empty lot. And then we stood in this empty lot and we looked up, and lo and behold, about 50 feet up, like I said, there was a craft that it was about 30 feet in diameter, and it was kind of one of those pudgy crafts, like you have these little when you pump up a little toy and it spins. Well, it kind of looked like that, just a little pudgy thing. It had 3 levels. The bottom level was dark, and I could assume the reason why it was dark is because it come into the atmosphere and it burnt carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide, nitrogen, and oxygen, and which creates that sulfur dioxide smell, in which we call ozone now. That's considered ozone in nowadays speaking. But we stood there looking up, and we didn't hear anything. But my buddy afterwards said he heard a little hissing sound. I did not hear that, and so I was paying attention to the portals, the windows on the second layer of this little pudgy disc. And it was about 12 feet tall, or maybe 12, 14 feet tall. And on top, it had a little red light on the top of it for some reason. I don't know what that was for, but it had 2 antennae. It looked like antennae, so they were communicating through some kind of a frequency with each other or whatever, because why would it have antennae sticking at the top? Well, my gaze was at the windows, the portals. And I told my buddy, I said, I hope they don't look out. I don't want to see them, And because we were watching all these movies in the late 50s and 60s about the Martians invading and all this other stuff. And it had us scared. And even our parents had us scared. They said, if you see a disc on the ground or something landed, don't approach it. Run. Get away from it. So this was a big scare back then. It actually was bigger than what a lot of people, I guess, that were born after 65 or born after 60 probably didn't really realize that there was a saucer scare after the first, like from 1947 to 1954, 55. They saw a lot of flying saucers, and we labeled them, and people paid more attention to them. So it was on the radio. It was on, the parents all knew it, so tell their kids stay away from this stuff. So, but when that's why we were kind of afraid, but we were kind of like frozen in place, just standing there. We pinched each other to make sure it wasn't a dream. And my friend pinched me too hard. And I said, "Oh, that hurt." I said, "Not so hard." And we kept looking, though. We didn't move our heads because we kept looking at this saucer. And it was right over my backyard. Actually, it was. We were up on this empty lot, and it was just a little hill, and it went down into my backyard. And so it was actually over my backyard. We were looking at it in the southwest. Well, we were standing there, and then all of a sudden we kind of, I guess, got out of the, I guess you would say, dumbed down feeling. And I saw the craft take off in the west. I did not understand the direction of this thing until I drew it out several years later. And then I went up on that hill and I took a look at the direction of it. And it took off in the west, in the due west. And I saw it just shot up through the clouds real fast. And my buddy actually did not see that. He saw it take off, but he did not see it take off up into the clouds. I don't know what. There's a difference in how people are affected and how they pay attention to detail. But that saucer took off in the west, so it must have moved about 40 degrees, something like that, and we did not see it move. So that tells me that it made a move, and it probably made a move on us because we don't remember the time. We think this started about 10:30. We did not get into our houses until about maybe midnight because my mom was really mad. She unlocked the door and she asked me, "Where have I been?" And she said, "You were supposed to be in at 10 o'clock or 10:30. And I said, "I saw a flying saucer, Mom." She says, "I'll UFO your butt." So I ran in there and I told her, and she says, "We'll talk about it later. Get to bed." So I went to bed, and that was the end of it. My buddy said he went and told his dad the same thing. Of course, he said, "Son, go to bed. Forget about it. Sure, it was a flying saucer. Sure." So nobody had a belief in it. Especially they wouldn't believe kids. But come to know that when you're 13, 14 years old, you remember it quite well, and that's the age where you really take in a lot of things, and you had a little bit of fear factor, so it sears a memory into your brain, so you don't forget those things.
Yeah, it's kind of amazing that the parents don't even take kids serious when they come with information like that. I don't understand that. I didn't have that experience. If I told my mom something, she was all ears.
Yeah, but guess what? This is something else my mom was hiding from me. Her family and they've seen flying saucers in their backyard. And the one that she described looked like the one that I saw. And she said her sisters, younger sister especially, saw it pretty close up. And I thought to myself, okay, she's had these experiences. And she's also had experiences of the shadow people, or the tall, dark, thin people that come into her room and into her bedroom. And she told me, just been telling me this the last 10 years since I've been involved in the other UFO events. She come out and told me things that these things actually molested her. And this was some years back. And she's 92 right now. And but she remembers all these things, and we talk about it. My older brother asked me, said, "Why does she talk to you about it and not to me?" I said, "Well, I've had experiences," and I said, "She can relate to me." And you were just saying about the experiences, and that's one of the goals that I want to do. Mm-hmm. I want to bring the experiencers out, let them talk about this, let them talk about their experience, so we all can fit these pieces of puzzle together. And I just want to be bold about it and just come out and tell the truth. Now, if you're telling the truth, you should be bold and you should be confident about it. Yeah. And just come out and say it, and the truth will stand. Lies will fall. So absolutely. And your memory of the truth will always stay there. And it's like me. I don't make notes when I talk to people like you right now. I don't have notes. I have a ledger that's in the other room, but I don't make notes of these things because I remember these things quite well. Yeah. I'll tell you also, Dave, there will be a day, and that day will come soon, after that it has been commonly
acknowledge that yes, UFOs are real and the extraterrestrial presence is here. Now, we may not have more than that in the disclosure, but there will be a day when people are going to come looking to you and me and say, wait a minute, you talked about that years ago. Tell us more.
Right. I'm kind of saying that now with some of the dribble of the disclosure from the Navy. And I'm kind of bringing that out myself and saying, see, I told you so. I said, this is just the beginning. And so that's where I'm at with it. But I've had journalistic training. I've had, I guess, 4 years of journalistic school in radio and TV, and also had one specialized school. So what I've learned is to always take notes on what happens, and always take those notes and take a look at them again and make sure that everything went accordingly. And also look for a follow-up fact. There's when something happens, there's always something that will happen later that will tell you. It's kind of like a calling card. It says, yes, you did see this. So here's what happened to me about 3 weeks later after that first UFO event that I had in '63. 3 weeks later, or somewhere in that area, I felt a bump in my left testicle. And I thought, what is that? It wasn't proper. I was 14. Of course, we were exploring our bodies and thinking, okay, what's right and what's wrong? But this little bump wasn't right. And then I looked at it closer. It had about a 3/8 of an inch or more cut. It looked like a real fine red line cut, like a little laser cut. And I didn't understand that back then, but what I did is I pushed this little thing out of the same hole that it was cut for. And that's what made it, it made it different, because my mom, after I got it out of my scrotum area, I put it in my hand, and it was actually like an ash light color. And then it started turning brown as I held it in my hand. It was deteriorating. I showed it to my mom, and she said that could be a blackhead or something just ingrown. I said, no, Mom. Here I was 14, and here I was kind of correcting her, and I said, no, there was a hole cut for it, and I just pushed it back out the hole. She looked at me, a strange look. She really looked at, she thought, something has been going on here. That's what she was thinking. I could see it in her eyes, and she goes, well, still, throw it away, okay? And she kind of was in deep thought after I told her that the hole was cut for it. So that's what made a difference in that. That was the follow-up thing. I also had a regressed.
So you don't have that object anymore, do you?
No, I don't.
Oh, that's a shame.
Well, I was 14. My mom told me to throw it away. And back in '63, we didn't think of. I wasn't, old enough or trained enough to realize I should keep it, but it would have deteriorated, because I did have an implant that I took out in 2011 in my left calf, and I saw a little round red hole, in which gave me the appearance of the round cut that was in my testicle. Mm-hmm. I dug on that little round red hole, and I thought, well, it itched a little bit, so I scratched it, and out popped a bubble of blood. So I put a napkin on it, and when I did, I pulled out a piece. It was almost 3/8 of an inch long, and about 3/16 of an inch wide, and it looked like a piece of like charcoal. Like it was kind of dark, and I took it out, and I said, that's strange. So I put it on a tissue, and I looked at it closer, and I had a little microscope, and I looked at it closer with a microscope, and I thought, wow. I said, this is different. So what I did is I took a lot of pictures, and I took quite a few pictures of it as it was deteriorating, and I do have a lot of pictures of that one. I don't have that one because it just dissolved in a plastic baggie. I had it sealed, and it just dissolved into a liquid. So
did you see any patterns or any markings on the surface of it or anything like that?
No, it wasn't metal that I know. It's one of those comet type rock pieces that they've been getting out of people. I didn't know this until I guess several years later, when I did a little study on Daryl Sims and the things that he does. Yeah. And he has these studies, and I saw pictures of these things, and I said, oh wow, there's a couple that look just exactly like I had. They're carbon based and they're body friendly. So but if you take them out of the body, they start deteriorating. for a reason. That's for a reason. But when I got a good look at it in the microscope, I saw things that looked like brain neurons, like little squids and little octopus that was breaking off the edge of it in the microscope. I said, "Oh my God!" And I showed this to a biologist friend of mine, and she's been working at St. Louis University for a long time as the head biologist there. And she looked at this. She said, "I've never seen anything like this before." And I took it to a group meeting in Springfield, and they all looked at it. And she says, "This is something different." She says, "I don't know what that is." She said, "It scares me to think what this looked like." But after a while, those little squids and little brain neuron looking things kind of disappeared. And it was all just it was broken up. Like I said, I do have pictures of it. I sent them to Daryl Sims. And so he has records of some of my stuff going on.
Wow. Yeah, I imagine that they probably have it built so that it self-destructs for a reason, so that maybe we shouldn't be able to find out what it is.
Right, but I've seen some implants, and Daryl Sims have them. They're metal. They actually in a T shape, and they're small. I have something in my thumb, my left thumb in the joint, and it hurts me sometimes, and it's a little knot-like, and it's a little bump, and it moves around a little bit. And I had a doctor feel it, and he said if it doesn't bother you, then we won't remove it. But apparently here lately it's been bothering me. So I don't know what that is. I don't know if that's an implant. It looks like it could be right on the seam of the thumb, and that would be a good place for him to cut into. So I don't know. I'm going to have that checked out probably. But there's been a lot of little things that's happened that reminds me that I've been visited by people that I don't know. Yeah.
And I think, though, that if you end up taking this one out, be in a place where you have almost immediately access to a really large microscope, because that would be interesting. Maybe you could even open it up before it deteriorates. What do you think?
Well, it won't deteriorate as long as it's in my body. But here's the thing, Augie. If you go to a medical institute and you have a doctor take it out, you know what they do? They'll show you what it is, but they'll keep it because they don't allow people to take out body parts or anything like that, because it's some kind of a toxic thing that they have, some kind of a rule of toxic waste, and they think body parts are bad, so they won't let those go. They'll let you see it, but that's it.
But then you need a private place where that can be done. And I now see that we have 1 minute left to the break. So when we get back, we want to hear more about this. And I want to hear also maybe the entities that visited you. Have you had any communication or impressions? Or, everybody talks about the flying discs, but I'm more interested in who's the pilot. That's what we want to talk about. So we'll be back in just a little bit. So stay with us and we'll be back.
You're listening to the Universal Consciousness Show.
The Universal Consciousness Show.
Your weekly connection to the truth.
You get to really sort of enjoy a bizarre ride.
Share your knowledge by calling our hotline number at 702-425-9230. That's 702-425-9230.
Call now.
Worldwide callers find us on Skype at KCOR Radio. It's time to abandon your fear and question what you think you know.
And now, if you will, accompany me on a journey to the future.
More awakening awaits.
After this, after this, after this, after this, after this, after this.
They say that the truth is stranger than fiction. What if they are one and the same?
It's a life form, unlike anything we know, not cellular but electrical in nature, extremely intelligent.
Join Dave Emmons, host of The Strange Truth, every Thursday night at 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 p.m. Eastern, as he connects the dots that others miss. The Strange Truth is a groundbreaking 2-hour talk show that interviews the hottest UFO experts, experiencers, whistleblowers, and spiritual masters from around the world.
A tool for people to connect with the universe and begin to understand it.
The Strange Truth. It digs deep into current events, the extraterrestrial contact phenomenon, explores suppressed history, and dissects false flag conspiracy, all while expanding your spiritual ascendance.
What was that name again?
The Strange Truth, hosted by Dave Emmons, live every Thursday night at 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 p.m. Eastern, exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. Come get tomorrow's news today.
Monday nights are about to become hauntingly good, as Reverend Sean Whittington possesses the airwaves with Vegas Supernatural. Tune in every Monday at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern for Vegas Supernatural, exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. There's a war raging between good and evil. The question is, which side are you fighting on? Tune in Monday nights as Reverend Sean Whittington sets the new standard for paranormal radio with some of the most influential personalities in the world today. Vegas Supernatural, hosted by Reverend Sean Whittington, every Monday night at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern, exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. The one show even the devil doesn't want you to hear.
Hello, KCOR listeners. Lorian Fenton here from the Fenton Files to tell you about UFOCon 2020 in San Francisco, February 20th through 23rd. A conference like no other, UFOCon is where experiencers are going to reveal new information and science and consciousness will collide. So get your tickets at UFOCon2020.com. That's UFOCon2020.com. Don't miss what will be the most talked about conference of the decade.
Are you ready to go?
It's showtime!
Here we go, world. You're listening to the KCOR Digital Radio Network.
Broadcasting from the heart of Las Vegas, Nevada.
Their base is so large it has to draw most of its power from the nearby nuclear fusion plant.
The future of radio is here and now.
Going live in 3, 2, 1.
It's time, once again, to unravel the mysteries of the universe by connecting the dots to a higher consciousness. This is the Universal Consciousness Show.
The Universal Consciousness Show.
Now the world will begin hearing us.
Share your knowledge by calling 702-425-9230. That's 702-425-9230. Worldwide callers use Skype name KCOR Radio.
It's as simple as that.
Find us on Twitter at KCOR Radio or use hashtag KCOR. Even better, join us on the live chat at KCORradio.com. Back to your enlightened hosts, Avi Nast and Diana Serafini.
Hello. We are back with the Universal Consciousness Show, and we're talking to David Emmons. We are talking about his incredible experiences with flying discs and little short guys, extraterrestrials, and some of the taller ones. And while we were on break here, we got a question into the chat room from Margaret, and she asks, does he know which group of aliens abducted him?
Yes, I do. And I've seen several. Actually spent a day with a hybrid alien. And so I don't know how much she was involved in my abductions, but things happened after I met her in 2010. But the first one I saw was in 1996, straight up. He come around the bed, and it was dark. The ex-wife always wanted things covered so there wouldn't be any light. I thought it was my daughter coming in to go into the master bedroom and go in to get an aspirin or something, and it wasn't her. I got up on my elbow and I looked, and I called out her name. It wasn't her, and the shadow come around the edge of my bed, and it come right to my side, and I shifted to my left hand, and I looked at this thing, and I was in amazement. It had big eyes. The black lenses were off. I saw the white pupils and the iris. I saw their eyes were twice as big as ours, actually, and I saw the face was really wrinkled, not like the commercial grays. This was about 3.5 feet tall, and he was really wrinkled. I don't know if they get older, they get more wrinkled, or he's a senior, gray or whatever. But his wrinkles were defined, and he was gray and green looking. When I saw it in the shadows, and I saw a gray green color, and he was looking at me, and I was in fear for about, I guess, 5, 6, 7 seconds. I don't know how long, but then all of a sudden I had this calm come over me, and I just laid back and went to bed. Well, what he did after that, I'm not sure. I've had several regressed, very lucid dreams, and this come back to me. I don't know which one belongs to which actual meeting of these beings, but I'm sure he took semen samples, DNA samples, and they were following me. I guess they were following me through life. But then in 2010 is when I ran into, and this person says alien, but it's kind of hard to figure because I kind of I've been talking to some people and getting more pieces of the puzzle. I have these hybrids or these aliens that are hiding in human form that walk amongst us. I believe in Dr. David Jacobs and everything he talks about. I've seen these individuals, but I think there's 4 different types. You have the hybrids, in which somebody just said on a questionnaire I saw that a DNA enhancement, and I think what happens with some of us, I could be in this category, I'm not sure, but when you're born, you're either hit with this DNA enhancement, and these ETs are invisible. There's an Oxford scientist who actually is Dr. Young, and he said that ETs are invisible, so they can move about whatever they want. So yes, there is DNA enhancement in the first, I'd say the first level of hybrid, in which there's probably a lot of us out there because they're following us. They've implanted our DNA. We have a lot of I guess junk DNA in which they can hide anything they want, and in that 75% of junk DNA, they can manipulate that and use that. And just like this person had the question, yes, they could do that. That'd be the first level. And there's a lot of us walking around. These are people that are being followed. They're being I guess implants put into them so they can be followed a little bit easier. But they can find you through frequencies. We all have a different frequency, a DNA frequency that vibrates, and these ETs can pick up on that. So that's how they do it. That's the first level, but that's people that's like me or a lot of people that's been followed and been implanted. We're the hybrid with number ones. We're not really hybrid, but the second level that I see is the hybrid that is actually part alien and part human. And they try to make them look like human as much as possible. But there are some features they're having a hard time hiding. That's the eyes, because the eyes are so powerful in these hybrids that are part alien, part human, that you can tell right away who they are by looking at them. And I guess if you can pick up the energy, you have to have a third eye for it to pick up a lot of this energy. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what gives you that third eye is some of the implants. And when they do this DNA manipulation, as this person who called in or answered our question. But the third type I'd call the shape shifter, the alien that can actually shapeshift into a human being. And they say the reptilians do a lot of that. I haven't had much dealings with reptilians. I saw one in my bedroom in a flash. It was about only 5.5 feet tall, must have been a young one. And when I looked at it, it looked like a big cobra, and it scared me to death. And I jumped out of that bed. I was so scared. So yes, I've seen them, but I haven't seen them working with me or in a regress dream. But it's that third class I call shape-shifting and that type of thing. And the fourth kind are like dimensional people that are human beings. They're actual human beings that can be working with us, working in government, and they're elbow to elbow with us. Those are the kinds of aliens that I think they are. But the ones I saw, I think they're involved with me are the Greys. Of course, the Greys are controlled by the tall whites or the Nordics.
And there may be another fifth kind, and that is the higher vibratory spiritual beings that is maybe to a certain degree trying to influence mankind to raise their vibration and possibly become a member of the galactic society at a higher level than what we are. They could be light beings, they could be other things of that nature. What do you think?
Right, yeah, I kind of base those in my fourth kind, but you explained it right. I'm trying to hurry up and get things through here. But I know that the spiritual beings are the highest form of ETs, and I think Christ was part of that. He was part of that higher, I guess, spiritual being. But we don't want to get into that too much. But those are the ones that I know that are like hybrids. The difference between hybrid, the shapeshifter. I had a friend of mine in Sedona. Everything to me happened kind of like in Sedona. I had a friend of mine in Sedona. He was dealing with these Persian rugs, and he went to this house in Prescott, just a little bit away, about 30 miles, and he actually measured the rooms for the rugs. And he said, well, I'll be back tonight to finish off, bring the one rug in, and he said, I'll finish off the other room. And the young boy, I don't know how old he was, 11, 12, he said, I wouldn't do that if I were you. He said, what are you talking about? He said, you can't come back because we change. And he says, what do you mean you change? He said, we're not who you think we are. We're actually aliens to you. And he says that you might be fearful of what we look like. His mother stepped in the doorway and she listened to this. She heard it. And she told him, this friend of mine, and this guy, he's very level-headed, very sharp, a businessman. And she told him, she says, yes, don't come back tonight. Come back tomorrow at noon or so. Says we do change and we are aliens. She said that. The mother said, and he said they were serious. And he said from then on, he was a little bit afraid of even going back at all. But I guess he finished the job.
I'm not so sure I would go back at all.
Right. But I've got all kinds of those little stories. But I guess I'll stay on the aliens that I guess I had to regress these dreams are really, I can't really call them dreams. They must be just replays of what really happened. And I had one of the biggest regress dreams I had. All of a sudden I appeared on this big ship. And it had metal walls, very shiny, very clean, sparkly. I walked down this hallway and I saw little rooms off to the side. I saw entities in there, but for some reason, just like with dimensional things, you do not see their faces too much. For some reason, they block out faces when they do this. And I looked and I saw them in these rooms, and I walked down into this big open auditorium, and there were 3 podiums. On each podium stood a tall person, in which was the tall white or the Nordic, and then there was an animal that they had on a leash or a chain or something, and I could see the first one. It was close up. It looked like it was part kangaroo and part rabbit or something. I don't know what it was. It was kind of a split between 2 different animals. I couldn't see it too close up, and the other 2 I couldn't see hardly at all. And I saw all these human entities like standing there and looking. I took this as as Noah's Ark. They're going around and planting new life forms on different planets, and they make them in labs there and grow them and then put them on planets that they might be more suitable for. And I turned and I walked back, and at my right foot there was a black box following me. And I looked down at the black box, and it was right at my heel. And I looked down at it several times, and I thought, what's this thing? It followed me. And I got up close to there was 3 looked like females in these white robes, and I got up in between them and looked. There was a baby that they were tending to, and it looked like it was about 6 months old, and it had 3 eyes. And the eyes were almost straight across. They wasn't like the Cyclops eye up on the forehead. It was actually lower along the eyebrow area, and all 3 of them were like together. And I thought, wow, that's crazy.
Yeah.
And I stepped back, and then here comes a tall female. She must have been about 7 feet tall, and she wore a two-piece, like a tan-like color skirt, like a mini skirt down to her knee area, and then she wore a larger, I guess, top that covered her top. And she was kind of like her stomach was exposed a little bit, but I saw the color was brown and tan, and I waited there. She was actually telepathically talking to me to stay there, and she'll be right there. And she walked up to me. I looked up at her, and she had no hair on top of her head. She had big eyes. They were kind of like big almond eyes, and they were dark eyes. And she had a face just like we did, had a nose and had a mouth. And she was very attractive and, very well, built or whatever we can call that. Then she wasn't scary at all to me. I mean, it was kind of like, it was a very pleasant meeting. And I walked around this corner with her, and she was messing with little round metal dials. They weren't glass or anything like that. They were metal. She put her hand on them, and she disappeared. And then she come back, and then I looked at her and said, "How did you do that?" I was actually kind of relating to her. And she looks at me with a little grimace, not a smile, just the bottom lip just kind of grimaced a little bit. And I said, "Okay, this is strange." And then she said to follow her down this hallway. It was about 5 feet wide or so and about 8 feet tall. And it was a little narrow hallway. It was stainless steel walls. And I said, "Okay." And she walked. As she was walking, she was disappearing. And then I followed her, and I disappeared. And I come back to my bed in my bedroom. And I got up and I said, "Oh, wow, what was all that about?" So I believe they were responsible for following me and tagging me with the little grays and the tall whites. And the one thing I noticed about her, Augie, this happened several times. When she put her arm on one of the controls, I was looking at her arm. She had fine hairs on her arm. Why I'm supposed to see that, I don't know. I guess it's telling me that they're humanoid. They're humanoid beings just like us. I think that's what it told me. Yeah.
Yeah. Now you mentioned earlier also that your mother had seen these and maybe had contact, as well as possibly your grandmother. So I'm wondering, do you think this is maybe a generational thing, that they have maybe done this from way down past, all the way down through generations, and now down to you and possibly your children?
Right, Augie. There's been several theories on that, the reason why they follow certain families. I know that one time they talked about Native American Indians being tracked, and we do have Indian blood in us, Crow Indian. I don't have too much of it, but I guess enough that they follow. But they've had associations with the Native American Indians 2, 3, 4, 500, 1,000 years ago, whatever. And that was one angle of it. The other angle is the DNA vibrations. I was told by one strange Japanese fellow in Sedona, when I told him about meeting the Japanese girl there in Sedona, he said, the aliens believe in reincarnation. And I said, "Really?" And I said, "That's kind of a big remark." I said, "Do you know that?" He said, "Yeah." And he must have been, because he was kind of I tried to get hold of him, talk to him the next day, and he was gone. He was very, in and out a couple of times on the front porch of the lodge I was at. But he was strange, and he told me that, and I thought that was really weird, because here's what happens in that there could be another soul in us, and they're tracking that soul, and they know who this soul is that they're tracking, reincarnated in another person. Now, I don't know a whole lot about the consciousness, the technical end of that. You probably know more about that than I do, Augie.
Yeah, I think too that they follow the essence of the person, possibly the consciousness, and that consciousness, doesn't have amnesia as we do. So the consciousness accumulate information from lifetime to lifetime and grow in spiritual capacity. And maybe they're being monitored and possibly guided somehow. That is kind of what I'm leaning towards.
Right. Yeah, I pick up on what you're saying, and I believe, and it's just like these hybrids that come up and meet you. It's not by chance that they meet you. I've had one person in Sedona. She was a tall black woman, and she walked up behind me. I was at a pizza place going to get a pizza for this motel manager myself, and she said, I was supposed to run into you. I was supposed to meet you. I said, really? And I said, you're into UFOs then? She goes, oh yes. And so I talked to her a little bit, and I've talked to her off and on throughout the years on Facebook, but she travels all over. She's everywhere, and I don't know how she does it. But I run into these different people that are half alien, half hybrid, and have made their way through the social webbing in our society. But yeah, I believe that they can pick up on you. I've had other people who picked up on my aura. I guess you can call it an aura, some kind of a energy aura that you put off. And they pick different colors. One guy told me he was in a nightclub. I'll try to make this quick. I know time is short. And he told me that he was in this nightclub, and he was an Air Force guy, and he was out in New Mexico somewhere. So in this town, he went in to party with his friends and stuff. He said, in walks this really gorgeous woman. And he was tall and not so handsome, he said. He said he didn't think that, he had any handsomeness about him. And so this woman comes in, she looks around and she looks at him. She sits down at the table with him. And he says, yes, can I help you? And she said, yes, I'd like to be with you. And he goes, yeah, why me? And she says, well, look around. See that guy over there? He's got a black aura. See that guy there? He has a red aura. And she says, you, my friend, have a green aura. And that's what I like. And so she said something about meeting him later on that night in his motel room. And he didn't think she'd show up. About 1:30 in the morning, she shows up at the door. Well, she comes in, and then they mate. They actually have sex for about half an hour or whatever. She gets up and leaves, and that's all. And that was it. And he thought it was kind of like, the making a baby type situation. So they picked the energy, not the appearance of a person. That's what that hybrid did to me in Sedona too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and
but
that
David,
is.
I also have a question. Can you think about about some of them, like a future form of us?
Yes, I think what the one hybrid let me know is that she thought that the earth was beautiful. She thought, that the little wind that she felt was great. And I asked her if she's been anywhere else, and she said she went to White Sands, and I said, why'd you go to White Sands by yourself? She goes, yes. She said, I just wanted to see the sand. So she was a little strange, and I thought maybe she could be from the future. There's been sightings of Asian, aliens, and I think in Washington State or Oregon somewhere where somebody saw about 3 or 4 Asians get off of this flying saucer or whatever. I don't want to call everything flying, so they have different shapes, but I can't remember the shape they said it was in. But there was 3 or 4 of them standing out there, and they said they were Asian. And then they saw them at a distance, and they got back into their spacecraft and took off. So there's been other incidents where there's been Japanese young ladies entice a man and try to get on his friendly side, and maybe for semen, maybe for childbirthing or whatever. But I really think they do look for people that have, just like Augie said, that was one of my thoughts too, that the energy that you have and they're picking up on it.
Yeah.
Did I answer your question, Diane, or did I get off?
Yes, absolutely.
I get off on a tangent. I got so much to say here.
Yeah, I see we have 4 minutes left of the show here, but there's one quick question. You also mentioned that you had in other conversation that you had some visitation by Asians, and you communicated with them, and you kind of thought maybe they were either aliens or maybe hybrids or something like that. So,
right, I couldn't figure out. I still to this day don't know. Her name was Hiroko. I met her in Sedona. It was October 4th. And I met her there, and I was pulled into by Cathedral Rock, if you know Sedona, and she pulled in behind me. She got out, and I was kind of filming because somebody said they saw a UFO there the night before. So I sat there with a camera, and I was filming, and I looked at her. She walked over to me like a little puppy. I kind of figured, wow, what's going on here? And then I stopped filming. I filmed her just a few seconds, and I asked her, I said, "You waiting for people?" And she goes, "No." I said, "Are you going to hike?" And she goes, "No." And I said, "What are you going to do? Just look for UFOs?" And every time I said UFOs, she just kind of hung her head and she didn't look at me. And she said, "We are supposed to meet." I said, we are supposed to meet?" She goes, "Yes, we're supposed to meet." I said, "That's strange." I said, "I don't know why." And she didn't say nothing. So we got in the car and we talked for a couple hours. It was raining outside. So she was trying to emotionally extract information from me. But getting to that point, we the next day we spent traveling around. I know we're running out of time. So we traveled around and looked at the different views. But it was 6 months later, in which, Augie, you were talking about. 6 months later, her and two younger Japanese guys showed up at my door. Mm. Well, she stayed away about 150 feet. She turned her back where I couldn't see her. And then the other two young Japanese guys walked up. They were dressed like normal, typical young, people. And they were one was 15 or so, and the other one was 17, a little bit older. And they stood there and they looked at us. And the one asked me a question, says, "Where's the new Walmart?" And I thought that was a strange question to ask. So I said, "It's over this overpass." And then that was the last words I said. My cousin was sitting there with me. And he just was dumbfounded. He didn't talk. He didn't say a word. And normally he jabbers all the time.
Yeah, I see we got minute and a half left of the show here. Please let people know where they can connect with you and get your material, and also about your radio show.
Okay, I do a lot on Facebook. A lot of the shows are showing up on Facebook and also on YouTube. And I will be starting with K-Core February 6th. And I'll be doing a show there. I get to be 8 o'clock Pacific time and 10 o'clock my Central time. So I'll be doing a show starting the 6th. I'll be working with Tina. She's a great person to work with. And also I have a lot of YouTube interviews from everywhere, from Grant Cameron to David Young to I've done about 90, maybe close to 100 hours of interviews. So those would be in YouTube, and they're also in the Facebook right now. I don't have books or websites, so I'm not selling anything.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you very much, David. We've been listening to David Emmons and his incredible experiences. So next week, we'll be back with the Universal Consciousness Show. Until then, take care of each other.
This has been the Universal Consciousness Show.
The Universal Consciousness Show.
Your weekly guide to a deeper understanding of the all that we are.
Well, in a few years, it will be a matter of common sense to very many people that they're one with the universe. It'll be so simple.
Live Mondays at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern, exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. For more information on the show, hosts, or their guests, please visit universal-consciousness-show.com. That's universal-consciousness-show.com. Remember, there's a shift coming. A new earthly paradigm. A shift to universal consciousness.
Universal consciousness.
This is KCOR Las Vegas, home of the Digital Radio Network, broadcasting from a shack just south of Area 51.
Wait, that doesn't exist.
This